Good day, beautiful soul family, and welcome back to the discovery of the miracles beneath the surface. All the honor and all the glory and praise goes to our Heavenly Father in King Yahushua's name. Beautiful soul family, this message is a collaborative thought. And the reason why I say it's a collaborative thought is because Abba Yah has helped me to see certain things. It's like certain pieces. Now, yesterday, my family and I, we were engaged in Bible study. And we were reading about Isaac. Now, this account that we were reading about was when Isaac wanted to, well, he told Esau to go ahead and get this meal prepared because he wanted to bless him. And so Esau went, but Rebecca, she told Jacob to go ahead and get two lambs and to give it to her so that she can prepare the meal. And he was wondering because he was like, well, Esau and I, we're different. You know, he's more hairy. And so anyways, she said, don't worry about it. I will deal with that. And well, anyways, long story short, Jacob went ahead and brought the meal, and he was Barut. After a couple of times of Isaac, making sure that he's the one that's supposed to receive the blessing. Now, after that, Esau came in and he said, I'm here to get my blessing. And Isaac said he already gave the blessing. And he said, no, you didn't. I didn't get the blessing, and so on and so forth. But the thing about it that was so interesting is that something changed with Isaac. See, in Yashar chapter 23, we talked about how Abraham and Isaac, and at one point, Isaac was able to see the glory that was on the mountain, and he was all in about, giving himself to Yahuwah, and it showed the purity of his heart. And then later on, okay, because he was well in his 30s when he had made that decision to, that if his father asked for his life, he would give it. And then this led to a cause and effect. Now, what's interesting is that we go to the point where he's about to pass away. And he is looking to bless Esau. Now, he is making this decision. He's making this decision to bless Esau for a lot of different reasons, for trying to change the past, trying to do something better. But the thing about it is that when we're doing something, are we leaning upon our own understanding, or are we called to move in a direction being directed by Yahuwah? Not by our own understanding. And I'm going to need you to hold on to that point, because it's going to come. I'm going to pick that up again later on in this message. Now, it's so interesting because it states that Yahuwah took away his sight. He not only took away his sight physically, But it continues to say that he took away his discernment. So discernment is spiritual sight. And you know what physical sight is. At that appointed time that Isaac was about to pass away, that's why he was issuing forth his blessings. He didn't have sight, physical sight to see, and he really didn't have spiritual sight to see as well. So he was relying on his other senses, but he was headstrong, trying to bring about a blessing to someone that Yahuwah hated. You see, as I don't know if anyone knows about this. If you were a child of the Most High, then you know about what took place as Esau was hunting with the lentil porridge. And this is where Jacob said, I'll give you a bowl and some bread for your birthright. And what did Esau do? He gave it. Because why? He didn't see any value in it. Okay, he didn't see no value in it. And then we look at Esau's life. He was really not going according to Yahuwah, because he married 2 Canaanite women. Not just one, but 2. And he became one flesh with 2 Canaanite women who were very deep in idolatry. So, even though there are different things that happen in our past, and we may not understand why it happened, like case in point, Ishmael and Hannah with Abraham and Sarah. Ishmael was the firstborn, but Ishmael was cast out. And especially before that, we see about the lack of confidence that Sarah had in Yahuwah. Now, Isaac may have very well wanted to do the right thing. A person who works hard, you want to do right by the person that works hard, But the thing is that, are they living their life righteously? So Isaac wanted to do the right thing, but according to his own understanding. And that's not good. That's not righteous. Because he was about to bless Esau, someone who was not upholding anything with Yahuwah, not building a relationship with Yahuwah. He married 2 Canaanite women who were engrossed in idolatry and other things. So really, what nation? Because as Esau and Jacob was in Rebekah's womb, there was much conflict. A conflict of 2 nations. So sometimes we think, well, we're doing the right thing, and we're going to make this decision, not knowing that was that even your decision. And we're going to talk about that too. So the thing is that Isaac was so determined. I'm sure Yahuwah, because in scripture it says that Esau I have hated, right? So I'm sure that with all that Esau was doing, I'm sure Yahuwah sent messages, sent visions, sent dreams, and Isaac was determined to bless Esau in such a way. Isaac lost his physical sight and his discernment. And that's just so amazing because when we read about Paul, although he was also known as Saul, he lost his physical sight. And when he lost his physical sight is when his spiritual sight was like activated. And then when he went on the house of Straight Street and was healed by Ananias, that is when his physical sight came back, but it was scales, like scales. The blindfold, the lies were like scales upon his eyes. So when you think about that, it's likened to, the lies or blindfold. It will blind you, and you would think that you're doing the right thing and you're not doing the right thing. But the thing about it is that it took for him to be blind for a period of time to activate the spiritual sight. As what happens when a person sight is not as strong, the other senses comes into play. So, anyways, the thing about it is that when Paul was finally healed physically, he had both sights. With Isaac, we see that he lost both sight, spiritual with discernment and physical. This is just a puzzle piece. So I was watching a video, and this lady was talking about I think she's talking about her presence in heaven. I don't know. But she was talking about how she was able to move around. And it was through the speed of thought. And I had to pause, and I was like, wow, that's so amazing. The speed of thought. And then Yahuwah brought my mind to the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve, their bodies were very different. Their purpose were very different. And how did they move in the Garden of Eden? How did they move in the Garden of Eden? See, we move around. We may take cars, planes, buses, bikes, or whatever. But where they were at, how they moved, what they did, is such on a high level. Because after they were disobedient to Yahuwah, what they were doing, we can't possibly imagine. But when you think about the speed of thought, see, because when I was thinking about Adam and Eve, I'm seeing her walking, cause and effect takes place, domino effect, and it leads her around to a place that she shouldn't be. But when you consider that their movement was different than how we move, that they thought about it and they were there. You see, Adam, one of his purpose was to name the animals. So can you imagine? How would he travel to name all these animals? From one point to another point. So these are different things that we might not be able to fathom, but it was a norm. And then when you really start to think about it even more, then you're like, wait a second. Traveling at the speed of thought, not communicating by the means of words. thoughts. And then when you consider the words and the spells, I remember, and I think I talked about it before, but if not, then I guess this is the first time I'm talking about it. I remember there was one time when I was in between sleep. I had the scriptures playing. I was in between sleep, which, what does that mean? Part of me was not sleep and the other part wasn't sleep, but I was still able to function, interesting enough. And I remember that I was hearing the scriptures, but it sounded like a different language. I woke up because I was thinking, well, the scriptures are not playing, and I don't like when you have something on and you think it's playing and you wake up and then it's something else. So I woke up and I looked and it went into English. So I thought that was interesting, and it happened again. So this happened twice. But this time I was like, okay, I am going to pretend like I'm not awake and see how long this goes. So I did that. And it was going on for quite some time. It was not English. And then when I rose up more towards the conscious plane, that's when it changed to English. And I was like, wait a second. That was really phenomenal for me. It was really different, but it by the grace of the Most High Yah, I was able to have an understanding that what we think is what we hear consciously may not really be the truth of what's really going on. And it's crazy, but it's about thought. So with the fall of Adam and Eve due to their consumption, man must not live on bread alone, but we should live by the utterance of Yahuwah, because they consumed of the utterance other than Yahuwah. They lost their dominion. Their perception changed. Traveling by the speed of thought, there was more things going on. You see, in Genesis, it talks about how he brought doubt. Why was he even in her space? You see, where they were at wasn't by the means physically. And we're looking at thought. We're looking at the beginning stages of the manipulation of thought. And so when we look at today, we see how subliminals, indoctrinations, and a continuing forth of those fanciful teachings, generation after generation, really is a carrying on of lies. And when we consider that, we can see how our thoughts have been greatly manipulated. It's been by the speed of thought that it has been manipulated. So even though we are not functioning in such a way as Adam and Eve functioned and lived, really, they still have been manipulating at the speed of thought. And so I think that's interesting, because especially during this time frame where it's about information and it's about understanding, our helmet of salvation. When we are fine-tuned with the fact that we have salvation, we have the opportunity. Our Abba Yah gave his only begotten son to give his life, to pay the price, cover the cost, and wipe out the debt. Wipe out the debt. You see, it's so interesting because I was just saying this morning that the debt is so crazy that why not just start everybody at zero? It's, it reminds me of the parable in the Holy Scriptures where the manager owed a lot of money to the king and the king pardoned the manager. But the manager didn't want to pardon his servant. So he threw his servant in prison, and the king said, wait a second, didn't I pardon you? I pardoned you, but you went ahead and you put that person in prison. And so we know what happened from there. But anyways, beautiful soul family. Our Abba Yah gave us salvation so that we can have the truth and we can live our life, fulfill his divine will. Now, what's so interesting is that the magician, the stranger, came and sowed seeds. When I was in New Age and I was in tarot and all that nonsense, there's a card called the Magician card. And the Magician card is the one that implements thoughts. In the Holy Scriptures, I would like to say that magician is the stranger, sowing tears. So you see how when we look at this and we look at society and the subliminals and advertisements in movies and TV shows and in so many different ways, and we see how the thoughts have been manipulated to where we don't have the truth to keep a person in confusion. So long as they're in confusion, they don't really know who they are, whose they are, where they're at, what's real, right? Which is what a lot of people were wondering, which is, it's so interesting that Yahuwah gave me that message to bring out that when you're caught up in the midst of thinking, well, exactly what is real? What is real? What is real? Well, what is real is our Abba Yah. He's not the Elohim, the God, the creator of the dead, but of the living. And he gave his only begotten son so that we can have salvation. And this helps us to really understand the value of the helmet of salvation. The helmet of salvation helps us to keep our, he doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and what? A sound mind. So the helmet it protects our mind, subconscious and conscious plane. It protects the axon neurons firing off. But this is spiritual, right? So salvation, it's a reminder that we have salvation. It's a reminder of all that was taking place, all that our Abba Yah did, not only in the spiritual plane where he kept this word, but he sent his only begotten son to teach, to free people from oppression and bondage, to give sight to the blind. This is all with our senses, our hearing, our smelling, our taste, right? I said hearing, sight, taste. I can smell. And, all those are four senses enlarged in our our head. And the helmet of salvation is what our Abba Yah gave us to protect all of that. So when a person doesn't know who they are, whose they are, what is given to them, they don't know the truth because they're so led by lies that they don't even know that they're spiritual beings living this human experience because they're too busy trying to please the lust of the flesh. So thought, the speed of thought, how fast is it? It's so fast that we didn't realize that we're still embedded in that. And that our Abba Yah said, look, the stranger comes at night. The stranger comes when you're unaware. The stranger comes when you're confused, trying to take over your temple, trying to shut you down. All by the means of manipulating your thoughts. Is it my thoughts? Is it Yahuwah's thoughts? Is it his thoughts? Is it her thoughts? And that's the state of confusion that will keep a person from knowing whose they are and whose they are, from seeking Yahuwah and knowing that he's given us knowledge, spiritual armor, letting us know what type of battle this is. This is not flesh and blood. This is spiritual. So long as we don't understand that we're spiritual beings living this human experience, we don't really have a footing. Then things start popping off and people start to be afraid because they're wondering how these other things are showing up and disappearing, not realizing our Abba Yah said, live and walk in spirit and truth. That means we are living and walking and movement and thoughts spiritually, where we test each thing by the means of his Ruach HaKodesh, his Holy Spirit. By the speed of thought. And then we can truly understand to a degree how they begin the way with things. Are the thoughts my thoughts? Or is it the harvest of the stranger that planted his tares when I was unaware? A lot is being said, but hopefully it's something to think about. You see, Isaac, he was so gung-ho and trying to have his way, but he wasn't realizing how he wasn't fulfilling the divine will of our Abba Yah. When we rely upon the utterance that is not of Yahuwah, a person will be caught up in blindness, both spiritually and physically. And they will not see. It will be the blind following after the blind. They both will fall into the pit. So this is something that I'm sharing. This is something to think about, because it's really about understanding what has been happening so that we can understand where we're heading. Until the next message, have a beautiful and wonderful day, and may Yahuwah continue to open up your eyes in these interesting times.